I know that I cover music a lot on this page and this channel, but I had to talk about this. Wrestling is one of those things where it is the only form of media where it can actually bridge reality and fiction simultaneously. It is the only thing that exists in reality that's not real. For example, when COVID was happening, right? You would think, oh, wrestling is just TV. It's just a product, right? So how would COVID affect? Wrestling was happening in real time during COVID. It is one of the only things that has bridged reality and fiction. They can bring in a real life celebrity into wrestling and he will be known in real life as that same person, but the wrestler will be known as somebody completely different outside of wrestling. That's why wrestling is so fascinating. Wrestling is also fascinating because it is the only thing where you can legitimately say never, right? And it will actually shock you. Like, it will actually blow your mind. And last night was one of those moments where a never say never moment actually occurred. And for my generation, this is the equivalent of Hogan turning heel and joining the NWO Bash of the Beat. For my generation, this is the equivalent of Steve Austin turning heel at WrestleMania 17, joining Vince McMahon, which frankly didn't really make a lot of sense, but we're not gonna talk about that right now. And for the next generation, it's gonna be Homelander Cody. Because wrestling has showed us that within each time period, the top guy eventually does it. Wrestling has shown us that the baby face of the company will be the corporate guy, or the guy that they're pushing, right? They're pushing to the moon, but they're presenting his character in a way that fits what society is. For Hogan, it was the 80s, eat your vitamins, drink your milk, classic 80s thing, always had to end with a good lesson. For the 90s, it was the anti-establishment, it was the Jerry Springer, it was the NWA, it was anti-police. And so Steve Austin was that guy. He was anti-establishment by nature because that's where society was. But in the 2000s, the 2010s, it was the PG era. People were softening up to things. Some things were starting to become, not as welcomed. We were getting things censored. Certain words were getting taken out of TV shows. We were starting to market everything more towards kids. Insert John Cena. The #1 Make-A-Wish guy. The guy that said that he will never turn his back on the fans. The guy that also said that he will never leave us and he will always stay with us. He won't go Hollywood like The Rock. And all three of those are gone after last night. John Cena turned heel and joined The Rock in a plot twist that a lot of people have been hoping for, but they thought would never happen. Even with speculation, people were like, if Cena's going to win the Elimination Chamber, it's too obvious that he would join The Rock. He wouldn't do it. This is his final run. Like, he's the top babyface. It doesn't make sense for John Cena to turn heel at this moment. Everybody was like, it has to be CM Punk. It has to be Logan Paul. It has to be Drew McIntyre. But the one guy that it was mad obvious for, nobody could believe it. Turning John Cena heel on his final run in WWE is not only one of the ballsiest moves, but in my opinion will go down as one of the greatest moves in wrestling history. Because if you think back to Hogan turning heel in 96 at Bash at the Beach, everybody hated Hogan by then. Everybody was tired of the lame red, white, and blue, orange, and yellow shtick. Everybody was tired of it. And the 90s were, again, anti-establishment, anti-corporate. We tired of seeing those type of people. And so when you think about the contrast of Austin was anti-establishment for the people, and Hogan became anti-establishment to create his establishment. That contrast that was going on in the 90s, where everything ran through Hogan, versus WWE, everything ran through Vince, and Austin was the guy that was combating that. There was nobody really combating Hogan, right? Which made his heel turn great till it wasn't. Austin's heel turn was, you are the anti-establishment guy, and you're joining the guy that you've had beef with for over 5 years? For what? It didn't work. His heel turn didn't work. It lasted for literally less than 9 months right? Because after the invasion angle, it was basically over. His heel turn didn't make any sense, and the crowd was still cheering him. This heel turn is going to be very interesting because wrestling fans nowadays are smarter than ever. The internet exists. Sometimes too smart. But just thinking about what this guy has meant to my generation. I'm 23 years old. And so just to give you a little trip down memory lane, John Cena has been my guy essentially since I was 3 years old. Because he won the world title in 2005. I was 3 years old then. I'm 23 now. So since 2005 to 2025, he's been my guy. He's been the guy where he was the #1 Make-A-Wish guy. He had the top merch. He was the face. He was the never give up, hustle, loyalty, and respect. 3 words that I low-key still live by to this day. Gotta hustle. You gotta have loyalty to people that you love. And you gotta have respect. People from my generation will tell you, our guys, Punk, Cena, Hardy, Rey Mysterio, Batista, right? Those were the 5 guys. But just speaking about John Cena specifically, we've had to defend his name at every chance that we got. When it was 27-year-old, the 35, the 40-year-olds in the crowd buying tickets just to say John Cena sucks, to argue with little kids like me, saying, let's go Cena, no, Cena sucks. We had to do that for 10 years, dealing with you geezers saying our guy sucks. And that's the issue. Because we love and respect your guy. But I understand the product is the product and you weren't a fan of the product at the time, right? You guys loved ROH, you guys loved TNA, you guys loved all those things, right? So I can understand not liking the product at the time. But that was always our guy. So we have always felt a certain type of way when it comes to, the Wrestle Talks, the Cultaholics, the Walk Coachers, because they were part of that generation that preached that propaganda on the internet. And so when you have things like, oh, the spinner title is the worst title ever, and then my generation is like, that's the coolest belt to ever exist. Which it is, by the way. The spinner title is 1000% the coolest belt to ever exist. When you have, bro, he was so boring, he couldn't wrestle, he just did 5 moves. And in our heads, it's like, bro, he's had classics with Triple H, he's had classics with Shawn Michaels, he's had classics with Randy Orton, he had a banger match with Undertaker randomly on a Monday Night Raw in like 2007. John Cena has had very good matches. But again, because they're looking at it from a different lens of what they view wrestling to be and what wrestling was starting to become versus what we know. Now we have the full landscape of what the wrestling was in the 80s, what the wrestling was in the 90s, what the wrestling was in the mid-2000s with TNA and ROH, right, in the Ruthless Aggression era. What wrestling was in the 2010s, right, especially with New Japan on the rise, Ring of Honor really being on the rise, Project, PWG, Evolve. Like, there was a whole landscape of wrestling that you could just watch. The product was changing, and John Cena was everything against that. If you just look at 2011 and how Punk was the ROH guy that came into WWE, was doing everything he could to try to change WWE's way. He was anti-establishment. But in 2011, he was anti-establishment but the heel. John Cena was the corporate guy, but he was the face. In 2025, CM Punk is still the anti-establishment guy to a degree, but he's the face. Cody Rhodes is now the anti-establishment guy, but he's the face. And the corporate guy is Cena, and he's the heel. When you think about how coincidentally Wrestle Talk is doing a Rock and Cena retrospective, and you think about Patrick CC's video that just came out a couple days ago about Rock and Cena and their real life feud behind the scenes. When you think about how Adam Blompier's booking of what Cena's final run should be and how he should get the 17th world title, and how he said he wants him to turn heel to be a tweener, really, but his whole character is, I'm best for business. I'm what's best for the company now. You think about his press conference a month ago where he says, I'm what's best for business. I'm doing what's best for business. And what's best for business is for me to win the 17th world title. When you think about all of that, when you think about his Chris Van Vliet interview from February 2024, where he asked him, yo, The Rock is a heel now. Could you ever see yourself doing that? And John Cena, to paraphrase, essentially said, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain at some point. Hogan lived long enough to see himself become the villain. Austin lived long enough to see himself become the villain. Cena has lived long enough to see himself become the villain. And so when you have Michael Cole saying, what are you selling out for? It's because he truly believes that this was going to be his trajectory at some point. At some point, he was going to get tired of losing. At some point, he was going to get that 17. And if it meant selling his soul to do it, he was going to do it. Now, I'm probably alienating a lot of people because I'm speaking a lot in kayfabe right now, right? Kayfabe is essentially, being in character or understanding that just talking within the show, not real life, right? But just thinking about all that, it's like, wow. You dreamt of the day, but you never thought the day would come on his final run. Well, he has less than 10 months? Less than 10 months with us. And one of the biggest things to happen in wrestling is you turning heel. The guy that I have backed all my life has turned his back on me. Wrestling, again, is one of the craziest things because for a while it felt like there was no such thing as long-term storytelling, especially in WWE. It's something that we've been craving for. And when we had finally got it under the new Triple H regime with Paul Heyman and the Bloodline storyline, and now this, while this isn't necessarily long-term storytelling, it has long-term effects. It has through lines and weeds that connect everything to this point. John Cena's always been the corporate guy. If anybody knows really how Cena operates, he's a yes man. He puts guys ahead of him sometimes, but for the most part, he's a yes man. He believes that if you don't work hard enough, it's your fault that you didn't make the gimmick work, essentially. Nobody else is to blame but yourself, right? He's that type of guy. He puts the company first. He's always been that type of guy. So this heel turn makes 1000% perfect sense for him. Because this is always who he's been. It's just viewed differently now. Because he's doing it against the guy that we all love. That doesn't want to do it the company way, but is the face of the company. He's not the corporate guy, but he's the face of the company. Versus now the ultimate corporate guy, who's no longer the face. This is why I love wrestling. Because you have these never say never moments where I can get Punk and John Cena to hug it out in the ring in 2025. You asked me that in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. I'm telling you it's not happening. I'm telling you it's not happening. You asked me prior to 2017, is Jeff Hardy gonna ever come back? I don't know. You ask somebody that witnessed the Montreal Screwjob happen in 95. You asking them, yo, you think Shawn and Bret Hart will ever shake hands in the ring again? Probably never gonna happen. But let me tell you something that never needs to happen again. You see that guy behind me? I never want to see him in my wrestling ring again. And I love Travis Scott. He's one of my 3 favorite artists right now. But let me make something very clear, Travis. I don't want to ever see you ruin one of the greatest moments in wrestling history ever again. I don't know who greenlit it. I don't know what it was Hunter, when it was Dwayne. Bro, let me tell you something. You don't need mainstream appeal every 5 seconds. Travis Scott, honestly, wasn't even the biggest artist in the building last night. The nigga in the crowd was. So why is he there? I get it, he looked cool with his hardcore championship. He had the sage. Why is he putting hands on Cody Rhodes? Why is he there? Why is he acting like he's a part of this? Bro, you're not in. You're not one of us. And I love Travis Scott. I love that he's a big wrestling fan, right? And I think that hip hop and wrestling have a terrible, terrible relationship that I think is probably the best person to bridge that. Not this 4x4 song. I think it needs something more, a little bit more ragery, right? That's not even the word, but y'all know what I'm saying? But the biggest heel turn in the history of wrestling has Travis Scott in the image. 5 years from now, we are going to look back and we are going to be like, why the hell was he there? This is the one time I'm going to actually agree with white wrestling fans, because white wrestling fans hate rap, period. They don't like rap at all, right? They don't understand it, they don't get it, and they don't think it mesh wells, right? Even though one of those guys are like Rock, I think Rock just fits the attitude of wrestling better, but I think hip hop can do it too. I don't think Meg Thee Stallion is the way, but I think it can be done, right? Travis Scott is not, this is the equivalent of watching Jon Stewart hit John Cena with the chair, talk about I did it for Ric Flair. You know what happened to Jon Stewart the next night? He got booed out of the building, and we never wanted to see him again. He was banned from wrestling in our eyes. I don't ever want to see his lame ass again. You could be a fan, you could be in the crowd, we could put you on TV, bro. Because mind you, they didn't even put Drake on TV. He was just there. They didn't even acknowledge his presence. He was just sitting behind the commentary desk. The only person that acknowledged his presence was Pat McAfee and Logan Paul. There are certain things that I just... That ticked me off so bad. I loved everything about that moment, right? And I don't want to make this video too long because I've already been talking for 20 minutes, right? And nobody wants to see me talk for 20 minutes. But I never want to see Travis Scott ever near a humongous monumental moment like that again. I don't ever want to see any celebrity near a monumental moment like that again. Under no circumstances. Unless they are a full-time commentator like Pat McAfee. I never want to see that again. Don't do that again. Because it's hard to look past it. The nigga's rubbing sage on him. Like, all right, bro. I'm out.